Hello, my name is Lucas Sullivan, and my capstone project will be on the Bank of New York Mellon. First off, we'll look at the history of the two original companies that merged together to form the Bank of New York Mellon. On the left, you could see Alexander Hamilton. On the right is a picture of Andrew Carnegie. The Bank of New York, the one that Alexander Hamilton found, was the first, gave the United States its very first loan. This loan was used to pay the salaries of the Senate and the President of the United States. The Bank of New York was also the very first company ever to be placed on the New York Stock Exchange. Mellon Financial was actually not found just by Andrew Mellon, but his father Thomas Mellon and brother Richard Mellon. It would go on to be Pittsburgh's first billion-dollar bank. And then the merger and birth of BNY Mellon, which is short for Bank of New York Mellon. On the left, we could see the building before the merger when it was the Mellon building in Pittsburgh. And then we see it today. Announced on December 4th, 2006 is when the merger was announced, and on July 1st the following year is when it became one, and then it created the largest security servicing company. An interesting fact about BNY Mellon is it's not actually a retail bank. Before the merger, both companies actually sold off their retail banking sectors. Mellon sold theirs to Citizen Bank in 2001, and in 2016, the Bank in New York actually traded their retail bank to JP Morgan for regional middle markets. And then all a retail bank is what most people think of when they think of a bank. You know, the buildings, you get your checking, savings, CDs, loans, mortgages, like a day-to-day person bank. Neither this company is not that. Now, the thing is, with BNY Mellon's, a lot of their competition and rivals, they are also strategic partners. And BNY Mellon's an international company, so it faces, both domestic and foreign firms. That's why I have, local companies, domestic companies like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and State Street, but also include Deutsche Bank and BNP Paribas. And also, these foreign companies are international, and these domestic companies are international, so BNY Mellon's competing with them, but like I said, they're also working with them. As you see for some of the headlines I put on this slide, the CFO CEO spoke to a Goldman Sachs U.S. Financial Services conference. And underneath that, there's the T. Rowe Price to outsource fund accounting administration to BNY Mellon. And actually, that deal alone gave $770 billion in assets to be administered by BNY Mellon. And then T. Rowe Price also gave up 220 of their employees. Right after that is a more recent one where both BNY Mellon and T. Rowe Price are launching their own ETF businesses. So that shows, how they're working together, but yet at the same time, they're rivals. The Bank of New York Mellon is the largest custodial bank in the world. A custodian bank holds clients' securities, stocks, cash, and other assets in either physical or digital form for safekeeping. This protects the assets from theft or loss. The custodian banks hold these assets internally on behalf of their clients. BNY Mellon is currently the world's largest custodian, followed by State Street Bank and JP Morgan. And then from this little statement from BNY Mellon, they have $41.1 trillion in assets under custody and or administration, and 2.2 in assets under management. And under that, we could see how the market is split up. The top 5 companies that do, custodial work have about 60% of the total market share, with the top 3, like I said, BNY Mellon, State Street, and JP Morgan. Together, they have 45% of the market, as a whole. The way I'd like to think of custodial banks is like Venmo, PayPal, or Zella, where, if you're sending money to a friend, those apps act like, the middleman between that. You send your money to the other party and they facilitate the trade. Now, this deals with the 2008-2009 financial crisis. This is when the government released the TARP program, and I found a good article that described what happened. The New York City-based firm, BNY Mellon, will assist with custodial accounting, account management, auction management, and other administrative duties regarding the complex portfolio of troubled assets that will be purchased with some of the $7 billion in funds provided through the Emergency Economic Stability Act. The bank will maintain the account of record for the portfolio, provide pricing and asset valuation services, and track assets required by the EESA, including executive compensation limits and warrants received from selling institutions. And then below, I included a little graphic that explained mortgage-backed securities, which was kind of the culprit that kicked off the whole global financial meltdown. With that, banks give out mortgages, and then what they did with mortgage-backed securities is they would put them in a pool and then sell them to large banks, large financial institutions, who would sell these, pools of mortgages as mortgage-backed securities. And then these would come with different risk ratings, with some low risk for people who have, high income, high credit, and could afford their mortgages, to people with not so good credit who are at worse risks of defaulting. Which, this investment on its own doesn't sound bad, but what happened is these investment companies kept pushing, banks and mortgage companies keep giving out more mortgages. So they had to start, expanding who can give mortgages, and eventually it got to the point where these companies were given what is known as ninja loans. No interest, no assets, no jobs, and they were still giving out these mortgages, which is high risk, but they would make these mortgage-backed securities and rate them as still low risk. And then once all these people started defaulting, the investors that bought the mortgage-backed securities, they would be receiving houses, but there were so many houses on the market that the price fell. And then people saw, they're paying more for their mortgage than the house is worth, and that increased, people losing their homes, not making their payments. And with this, people who were lending money felt that they weren't going to get paid back, so they pulled back the lending, giving out credit overall. People were losing their jobs, which, led to a credit crunch, so nobody could get credit. So that's how other businesses that weren't in the real estate or mortgage field were getting crunched, couldn't get financing. So BNY Mellon really shined during this. They were able to work with the government and was able to coordinate these bailouts. BNY Mellon is also getting into crypto custodial services. This here is by Linda Lacewell, and she is the superintendent of New York State Department of Financial Services. This is a tweet about BNY Mellon offering custodial service to like Bitcoin. The Bank of New York Mellon is a New York State chartered banking institution and is authorized to custody digital assets without the need to obtain a New York Department of Financial Services BIT license with the approval of the superintendent. Momentum continues for digital assets. The New York Department of Financial Services is committed to the growth of cryptocurrency, especially as we need new innovative ways to fuel the economy to build back better. An exciting development for BNY Mellon. BNY Mellon actually created their own digital asset unit because more and more clients and customers were asking for different things for their digital assets and cryptocurrency. So I see this as a great area for the company to expand their custodial services in a new emerging market. And then another area that BNY Mellon is involved in is collateral management. And the way I think of that is like, an auto loan or a mortgage, where your car or your mortgage acts as collateral. You don't pay your mortgage, you don't pay your car loan. They take, your house or car. And then in the business world, collateral management has always been an evolving practice. And then after the 2008-2009 crash is really when things started to pick up and then really advance. Collateral management is what I first worked at when I worked at BNY Mellon. Thing is, every day, we be trading collateral back and forth on many different investment accounts. And that's because the underlying assets, would change every day with the movement of the market. And then, once the market moves, it changes the exposure. So you need to move collateral to cover that exposure is the main idea behind collateral management. And BNY Mellon actually in 2019, one of their employees won Collateral Manager of the Year award from Asia Risk. And BNY Mellon has won awards from them for many years. So their collateral management is not only just known in the U.S., but across the globe. BNY Mellon is a trusted company that, offers services like this for both companies and the government. Here we got a SWOT analysis. Some strengths is because it's known across the world and has tens of thousands of employees. The largest deposit bank in the world with the largest custodial bank, a leading U.S. cash management provider, and safest U.S. bank. BNY Mellon's been around since the founding of a nation. It's gone through, wars, pandemics, financial crashes, but still strong. Some weaknesses, though, are dividend yield and the payout ratio when compared to other industries. And a vast majority of its revenue does come from custodial and investment management services. The company could diversify a little more from there. It's pretty reliant on that. But an opportunity is for BNY Mellon to expand into Latin America to improve its revenue. And then service expansions with touchstone investments will help grow in the mutual fund and advisory services. Some threats are the changing U.S. regulatory system, changes in the status of U.S. Pensions and plans and schemes that will affect the bank, and the slowing U.S. economy has hurt. With coronavirus has hurt everybody, but the Bank of New York Mellon is no exception. And here we have some conclusions and recommendations. If you look at this, I feel like this is important. Like a vast majority of BNY Mellon's revenue is from fees. So for, assets under management, assets under custodials, they make fees off of that. And part of it is, the value of the underlying assets. So the more assets they have under management and under custody, the more they'll make with fees. So definitely, I think they need to continue growing those sectors. BNY Mellon should look to constantly stay the world's biggest custodian bank, because of their reputation. And that's also another important thing. Them working with other financial institutions is definitely a strength of theirs, and they should keep it up, keep working with other companies, especially if they can work out deals like they did with T. Rowe Price, where, they could take over asset management areas from other companies. Those are tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of assets that start falling under the Bank of New York Mellon to help them collect more fees. I do think, obviously BNY Mellon can expand into Latin America, and there's a lot of room for them to expand into the Middle East. Some countries they should look to expand to is into Saudi Arabia, Israel, Bahrain, Kuwait. These are very wealthy countries. They're very stable in the Gulf area. The one thing is low interest rates are a significant part of the company, and the low interest rates that have been happening have been hurting, but it looks like those should go up after the coronavirus and there's economic recovery. Thank you.